Red Lion Street runs between St Stephen's Street and Castle Meadow, with Orford Hill either side of it. This is what it looks like in 2025, but it's seen changes in phases over the years. So to begin with, we go back to the late 1800s when the equivalent view was like this. We'll return to the Peacock pub seen in the foreground later in the video. Looking north, we can see that Red Lion Street was much narrower back then. Can you see what appears to be a black and white building with two windows at the end of the street? This was that building which prevented access between Red Lion Street and Castle Meadow, and is seen next to the Bell Hotel in this late 19th century photo. In 2025 the view looks like this. Returning back along Red Lion Street, this photo is from the late 1800s, the current equivalent view looking like this. This is looking back towards St Stephen's Street, and from this point stepping out into the road to look at these buildings, this would be the view. In the middle of the photo is the Cricketers Arms, a pub which would be near the traffic island in this photo, bearing in mind the road was much narrower. Opposite, the road to the left is Rampant Horse Back Street with Red Lion Street on the right. James Nelson, tobacconist, is in front of us. To the right is Miss Harcourt's, milliner and fancy draper, and Mr Curry, a harness maker. These shops would have been in front of the present Debenhams building in this location. The first major redevelopment of Red Lion Street came at the very end of the 1890s, when demolition of the entire eastern side of Red Lion Street was required to widen the street for the arrival of trams in the city from 1900. The Peacock pub, which we saw at the beginning of the video, was the first building to be rebuilt, and this is in progress on the right hand side of this photo. This is the completed Peacock pub, and it would remain open until around 1956, the location now looking like this, squeezed between Bella Italia and Tesco Express. Once the entire eastern side had been redeveloped, Red Lion Street would look like this, with a tram now in the middle of the photo. It was still narrower than the Red Lion Street that we see today, but it was the ideal location for the tramway centre, with virtually all of the city's routes coming through this point. Here are a selection of photos of Norwich's tramway centre. The building in the centre of this photo is the Norfolk and Norwich Savings Bank in the 1920s. By 1935 it had become Palmer's Store, and in 2025 it's a bank again, this time Barclays. The next section of the video looks at the period after the trams had left the city in 1935 up to 1939. This is 1937 with tram tracks and the tramway centre still in place, but with a car and bus in the photo. The 2025 view of this location looks like this. This is the Livingstone Hotel, as seen across Red Lion Street from Orford Hill, which is now the site of Primark. This is Orford Hill in 1938, instantly recognisable 87 years later when this photo was taken. This, equally recognisable, is the Bell Hotel in the 1930s. The next development of Red Lion Street was connected with Curl's department store, seen here on the left, looking into the then triangular Orford Place. St Peter Mancroft is seen at the back. Curl's was destroyed by German bombs on April the 30th, 1942, and is seen here at various points over the following decade when a giant hole remained in the city centre. At various times this area would be used as a water tank and car park. Rebuilding began in 1953, and in order to compensate for widening Red Lion Street still further, Curl's was extended into the triangular Orford Place. These photos show Curl's in various stages of redevelopment, and the shop would eventually reopen in 1956. It was taken over by Debenhams in the 1960s, but would trade under the Curl's name until 1973, becoming Debenhams then and eventually closing in 2021. Let's conclude this video with a few post-World War II photos of Red Lion Street. The car speeding past here is Princess Elizabeth, the future Queen, on her way to the castle to open the Coleman Galleries in 1951. The 2025 equivalent view of this location looking like this. This is the one building saved on the eastern side of Red Lion Street that we saw at the beginning of this video, seen here in 1968 compared to how it looks today. This looks up at Orford Hill in 1975, now hidden by trees, and these photos are of the relocated eastern side of Red Lion Street in 1988, in 2003, and finally in 2025. Just one final thought about the deteriorating Debenhams store. Remember, it took 14 years to replace the bombed curls in this location. Let's hope this prime site can be redeveloped far more quickly than that. And let's conclude with the question, why is it called Red Lion Street? I believe that the Cricketer's Arms that we saw earlier had been called the Red Lion until the 1850s. If you can confirm that, please add it into the comments.